Welcome to my first YouTube video, which is a review for my first robot vacuum cleaner, which is the Xiaomi vacuum x20 Plus. For £299, I thought it was a really good feature set. It's probably to the middle end of the price points for a vacuum cleaner. You can pay £100, you can pay more than £1,000. So this was kind of a good entry point for me. So I was very excited to get it. I've enjoyed having it, and this video is going to go into a lot more detail about the features that it has and some negatives. So apologies for the creased tablecloth. Let's take a look at the robot itself. So the robot was much bigger than what I expected. Reasonably wide, and it's quite deep, and it's also quite heavy. On the top it's got sensors, it's got an on-off button, it's got a continue button, it's got a sensor on the front, it's got charging points on the back, brush on the bottom, cliff sensors on the front and on the sides. I think they're used to stop it going downstairs. Got wheels in the brush. This is a bit dirty. I've had it for about, say, since Christmas, so about 6 weeks. Used pretty well, used pretty heavily. See the side brush is getting a bit dirty. The main brush is getting a bit dirty. But I'd like to delve into this a little bit more. So if you open the main brush, one of my slight gripes about this is it gets quite covered in hair. Don't know if you can see that. But I've got to spend quite a bit of time pulling hair off. I've got a few females in the house, there's a cat. It does get quite well covered in hair. It's quite easy to take off, but it does sometimes pick up issues. So I'm going to try and put that back together. Put this lid back on quickly. Sorry, put this lid back on. There we go. And if I turn it back round, we can see on the top, this is where the dust gets collected. So in this little unit here, you can see it's got a bit of dirt in there, a bit of fluff. This is a filter, which I think you have to replace not fairly regularly, but certain time intervals. And this is where the dust gets pulled into. When it goes back to attach to the dock, I think this is the bit here that becomes, actually I can pull that out, I've not done that before. That's where the dust, don't know if you can see in there, but this goes all the way through to the collection unit. So when this docks, it sucks the base unit, which we're going to look at in a minute, sucks all of the dust and dirt out of there. I think that's it for the robot. So on the last section, I forgot to talk about the mop pads. They weren't attached. So here are the mop pads. These are the things that obviously spin around to do the mopping. Something I'd like to quickly point out on these is that they're apparently raised on carpet areas. Let's look into that a bit later, but I've not really seen that. But also these tear off, so you can buy new ones. These are actually new ones. I have bought replacement ones from AliExpress, which these are for Dreamy models. Allegedly, Dreamy manufacture the Xiaomi robot, so you'll probably see a lot of similarities between what the robot looks like, but also what the base unit looks like. So this is the base unit. In the base unit, you have clean water, you have dirty water. This can be filled up as and when required. This gets really smelly, so I'd recommend cleaning that out as soon as it's mopped, but also potentially adding something else in there to stop the stench. So for example, some people recommend Listerine. I believe you can also buy a Dreamy deodorizer from AliExpress for the dirty water tank, which I haven't tried yet, but it's something I'm definitely interested in having a look at. Moving further down the vacuum, this is where the dust gets collected into these reusable bags, replaceable bags even. I have reused a few of them a few times. You can empty the dust out of them, they just slide out here. give it a little pull. This one's been a bit more difficult. So yeah, you can just try and get the dust out of there to use them again once you get full, or buy replacements. I did buy this one from AliExpress. It's actually for a Dreamy model. It didn't quite fit, but I managed to make it work in the end, and it seems to be just fine. What I would say whilst I'm here actually is it would be really good if there was some kind of notification when this gets full. What tends to happen is this gets full and your vacuum starts getting full inside of the unit, inside the vacuum that collects the dust, and that tends to lead to dirt not getting picked up properly. So you will find out eventually, but it'd be much better, far more efficient if there was a notification in the app of that getting full. This replaces on quite easily. Looking further down at the vacuum, this is where the vacuum essentially reverses onto, a bit like this. Can I fit this in here? I can, just about. Oh, let me just move the camera. And in the bottom there, this is where the mop pads essentially sit on when it goes in. You hear them spinning around. I think this is what cleans the mops. This is also what wets the mops. Enough water comes out of here. So when it's mopping, this is how it gets wet. Obviously you don't see it like this because the vacuum's on top. This does get very dirty. It does need cleaning. However, this does come out, so you can get it in a dish of soap or whatever. So it's reasonably easy to clean. And I think that's it for the base unit. Well, actually, this is I think where the dust gets sucked into when the vacuum docks. This is where I assume water comes out to wet the mops, and also this is where I assume water gets sucked back inside into the dirty water tank. Talking about the brush and some other things that I bought recently. So in terms of the brush, I think I mentioned earlier that it does get covered in hair. I have bought a Dreamy replacement. I don't think this is necessarily going to be much better at hair tangling or cutting, but I'm going to give this a try at some point. It does fit. I've not tried it, but hopefully it does a bit of a better job. Not that this is necessarily bad. Vacuuming, it's just the hair issue does get annoying. You can buy a tri-cut brush for Dreamy Hoovers, which I did think I bought from AliExpress, but unfortunately what turned up was the edges of the brush, not the actual brush itself. So as I understand it, these should slide onto the main brush, and the main brush has some it's like a spiral effect. I'll try and get a video of that or a picture of that to put on the video in order to cut hair better. So yeah, I'm going to also try and purchase one of those again, but unfortunately I've just purchased some spare ends for that. So I did also buy a self-cleaning version of the mop pad cleaner. So this is it here. As you can see, it's got what look like window wipers on the bottom, and I'm assuming is the idea being is that they'll turn and clean the bottom of the unit when it's cleaning the mop pads. Unfortunately, this doesn't fit into here with it not being a Dreamy version. I think it is very similar in size and shape. Unfortunately, it just doesn't quite fit. I do have a brand new Dreamy robot upstairs, two actually, which I'm going to be reviewing. So I'm aiming to try this on those. So fingers crossed that it does fit.
I've also purchased some other consumables from AliExpress, again from Dreamy models. I've got some bags. I've already got one of those in the machine now. This fits kind of, but you have to take a bit of this plastic off for it to fit properly. I've got some new side brushes, so those hopefully are going to be a good replacement for this one. Some more mop pads and some filters. I don't think this stuff's official. In terms of Dreamy official, for that matter, or Xiaomi, but it seems to be very similar to what's already on the vacuum. So hopefully I get some use out of these. I do plan to purchase some Dreamy official stuff from AliExpress at some point. I find it a bit tricky to find the right things to buy.
So I've recently got a new mat, and I'm going to use this mat to try and test out how good the vacuum is at picking up a handful of cat litter. The Coke bottles are there because the mat's new. The ends curl up a bit, so they're there for that reason, but also it may also give a good interesting view of the robot's obstacle avoidance. I've put the mat down in the kitchen, which is hard floor. So in order to test out this test, it's worth having a quick look at the app that you get with the Xiaomi vacuum. So the kitchen's hard floor. I've defined other parts of the house downstairs in grey. At the top there is carpet, so it won't mop on there. It doesn't have a carpet sensor, so you have to manually determine what that is. But quite a nice feature that I like in the app is the ability to vacuum a certain area. So as that mat's in the bottom of my kitchen, I'm going to draw a box around probably too big of an area, but I'd rather get it too big than too small, and start the cleanup so we can see how it copes with a handful of cat litter on almost quite a woolly mat actually. Let's see how it gets on. Vacuum's just on its way back. I thought I was being a bit unfair by having quite a hairy carpet with cat litter on it, but it hasn't done a bad job, to be fair. There is some cat litter left, not a whole lot, I don't think. So I think it's done a really good job actually. I'm setting the app for it to do 2 passes, which essentially means that it does a crisscross pattern. I think that would have been ideal in this scenario. However, we can't combine the selecting a section of floor to vacuum and the number of passes. So I'm going to send it out for another pass, even though there's not much litter left, just to see how it gets on with the final bits of litter. After the second pass, there's still a few bits of cat litter left. Not bad overall though, done a reasonably good job I think. So for the next test, I'm going to mop the hard floor, but I'm going to try and mark in the app that there's a carpeted area where the rug is. So I don't think it's going to work very well in terms of, I don't think this particular model of vacuum is going to deal with that very well, but let's see what that looks like. So I've refilled the water. I have also bought some Dreamy multi-surface floor cleaner, which you can add into the clean water, which I'm going to do now. I'm cautious not to use anything else, just in case it damages any internals in the vacuum. But this is recommended for Dreamy, so I'm assuming that it's going to be just fine for Xiaomi too. So as I don't normally have a rug in the kitchen, I'm going to need to change a part of the kitchen to be carpeted, which it currently isn't. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to add a carpet somewhere approximately here in the kitchen. It's probably a little bit bigger than where it needs to be. But let's see how that goes. And this obviously can't ever be exact. So if you do have a rug on some hard floor, I'm expecting it's going to be troublesome to mark that area precisely, firstly. But secondly, even if you do, that rug may move, so it may make this obsolete. So let's see how this is going to work. I've added a carpet. I'm now going to choose to mop in the kitchen. Kitchen's currently set to vacuum only, so I'm going to change it to vacuum and mopping. I'm going to draw an area, vacuum and mop, which is going to be around the area of where the rug is. And I'm going to start the cleanup. So the vacuum avoided the area I marked, I think, pretty much for the mopping. You won't hear it on the video, but the vacuum power boosted, as I think it thought that it was going to do the carpeted area, which obviously I made too big in this instance. I did notice the mop pads also raise up to try and, I guess, not get the rug wet. However, I think this rug was too thick, so the mop pads did rub against the rug, I think, to some extent. I think if I had a rug on some hard floor, I'd probably think about either just moving the rug completely when you do a mop, or you could experiment with the app to try and get the size right, but that might be troublesome, I'd expect. So it's getting a little bit darker outside, so the light's getting a bit less. Next test is going to be some cat litter on a bit of hard floor. I've got a bit of white plywood, so things stand out a bit better, but hopefully that'll show any missed bits a bit more clearly, and a good test of hard floor. So the first pass wasn't great, partially because it was moving the plyboard around due to the lips on the corners, and partially because the mop pads were on and they were dragging it around. So I'm going to move the plywood back to where it was, and I'm going to do a second pass without the mop pads. So it's just on its way back now. It's just finished. It still missed some bits of cat litter, but not bad. Second pass, no mop pads. Done a reasonably good job. So I've now got some muddy footprints on this piece of plyboard. I'm going to test out what the mop is like and clearing those up. After the first pass, it's done okay, but it's not really good enough. Gonna have to try pass number 2. Second pass, much better. There's still some little bits left over, but not a lot. I think the third pass would probably get that all cleaned up. So the third pass, there's still pieces left. There's still little bits of mud left. Perhaps stuff that could be picked up by a vacuum. By and large, it's not perfect. It doesn't replace a human. To summarise the mopping, it does a reasonable job at mopping. Vacuuming is my favourite part of this particular rubber vacuum. It's worth also pointing out that when it's finished mopping, these mop pads air dry, so the base unit will blow them for a time that's configured in the app. So I think mine's 4 hours, for example. That's cold air, and it doesn't always really dry them very well, and these pads can end up getting smelly. So I do wash them occasionally in soapy water, put them on a radiator to get them dried, hopefully to avoid the smell. Other models do have warm air drying. I've not tried one of those yet, but that could be a feature that helps alleviate that problem. It's also worth pointing out that the pads themselves get wet from the base unit when it's mopping. The robot will return to the base unit to get the pads wet again. It does this based on a configuration in the app around how much water to use. I think that's a proxy really for just saying how often do I go back and get these mop pads wet. So it's also worth pointing out that other models do have a water tank on board, so that reduces the need to return to the base unit whilst mopping. The other point I wanted to say is that I think you saw in one of the videos that these mop pads do raise So when it's not mopping, they do raise off the floor a little bit. That's to stop wet mop pads, I guess, going over your carpets when you're vacuuming, if it's mopped before that. It doesn't really raise them enough, so you do find that the pads will drag on carpets if they're wet. So I manage that by, I guess, manually removing the pads if I'm going to do a vacuum, if they're going to be wet. Or generally, I tend to remove the pads anyway when vacuuming, just because they do tend to drag across the floor. It's also worth noting that other models will raise higher. Some models will leave these in the base unit when it's not mopping, so that's a probably useful feature too. It's worth talking a little bit about the app. It does support multiple floors, so I've mapped out upstairs as well as downstairs. You can switch between selected maps here. You can edit maps, you can rename rooms, you can set boundaries, you can set carpeted areas. Remember, this Hoover doesn't auto detect carpets. There's all sorts of settings in here, most of which I don't actually use. I did notice a new one I haven't seen before actually. We've just talked about the summary of mopping, but you can, I don't know what deep cleaning means here. Perhaps it does some longer wash, I'm not sure, but I've not tried that before. I'm also mentioned air drying duration. After it's mopped, it'll try and dry the pads. You can configure that up to 12 hours in the app. One of the app that it's worth focusing on is the custom mode. So for example, in the hall, which has carpet, I've configured it to do a clean up 2 times. I've configured it to vacuum. You can do vacuuming, mopping or mopping, but clearly this is a carpeted area, so we can't do that. We can set the vacuum strength, and we can also set the water output for mopping at the bottom here, level 1, level 2 or level 3. The bit I'm particularly keen to stress is the number of times you configure a cleanup. If you configure the cleanup twice, sorry, the app's not working here. It froze on me. If you configure it to clean up twice, you can see it follows this crisscross pattern. It's not obvious in the app that it does that, and I do like that. Rather than it doing twice in the same direction, it does it in different directions. That gives you more opportunity to catch things than you perhaps normally would. So I do advocate for that. So in summary, I really like this vacuum. I think the vacuuming is quite good. It's not perfect. I don't think you're ever going to get a perfect rubber vacuum. The mopping is reasonably good. I do use it regularly on hard floors. Obviously the downsides being the potentially smelly pads, the smelly dirty water, the fact that it air dries cold isn't ideal. Other negatives